Hi everyone, today we're going to be talking about how it is impossible to reinforce a negative emotional state. By negative emotional state, I mean when your dog feels stressed, fearful or anxious. And by reinforcing it, I mean you cannot give it enough praise, pats, love, treats, anything the dog finds rewarding enough in that moment to ever make it want to feel that way ever again. That's just not how the brain works. Unfortunately, there are people out there saying the opposite. They're telling you that you can't do those things for fear of that. For example, they might tell you that when the dog is stressing out when there's a thunderstorm, that you can't praise it, you can't pat it, you can't give it cuddles, you can't give it treats, you can't give it something to chew, because it might enjoy that so much it might be scared of thunder again. No, it won't. It makes it feel better in that moment. The dog's brain is set up, think of it like two sides. We've talked about this in the dog's mind video. We can go into that in more detail in that video, but today we're going to briefly cover it in the sense that when the dog is thinking and choosing to do a behavior, that is because it is receiving enough information to be comfortable and it is not under stress, fear or anxiety. As soon as the dog's brain receives information that is either new and perceived to be a threat, sudden and unexpected, or previous learned association of negativity, the amygdala overrides the thinking brain in 0.02 seconds, and it is a reflex response because now the dog is under stress, whether it might be feeling fearful or anxious. The goal of this side of the brain is to survive, and it is there to basically make sure that it happens super fast. That's why it overrides it so fast. And it is not choice. You don't get to choose to turn that side of your brain on. That is impossible. And when we're addressing an unwanted behavior, it is so important to know which side of the brain is on, because if the dog is thinking and choosing to do the behavior, then you want to be very conscious about what you're reinforcing and what you're not. But if the dog is acting reflexively, then it is likely that it's under stress, fear, anxiety. And so your only goal is to make it comfortable enough to be able to think so that then it can learn. That's the frame of mind we train dogs in, where they can learn and think about their decisions and choose rather than just running on impulse. Let's give you an example in the human context and kind of compare that to dog training a little bit. Now, remember, it's not choice, so the one we're going to use when we're under stress or anxiety is hyperventilating. So as an individual, I get affected by an external stimulus and I start to hyperventilate. My body has a physical reaction that just makes me want to feel okay again, and so I start to try and get enough oxygen. The body responds by trying to get enough oxygen into it. Again, it's not choice. I don't choose to hyperventilate. The person next to me effectively could take one of three actions, I guess. According to the old myth that if you, in dog training terms, if you're calm and assertive and a calming energy, then, if you stand next to them and be that calming influence, then they might pick up on it. No, don't do that. It's a terrible, terrible. You're not helping anybody. You're not helping the dog that's feeling stressed or acting aggressively in that moment, or going through panic attacks or a thunderstorm in that moment. You're just being a weirdo sat still pretending to be calm. And it's as much help to the person hyperventilating. Then you've got punishment techniques. It's the equivalent of slap around the face, trying to snap them out of it. And in dog training terms, it's the equivalent of a check chain. It doesn't help in the long run. It might snap you out of it in that moment and block the unwanted behavior, but humans then have got the ability to verbally communicate. What do you do that for? Well, you're panicking. Oh shit, yeah, you're right, sorry mate, fucking hell, I feel better. Dogs don't have that ability to verbally communicate, nor do they then have the ability to pick up on your energy, because you're stood like a weirdo, remember. Really calmly, apparently. So it just means it doesn't help in the sense that what I was previously panicking about is still negative. You've check-chained me, or you've slapped me. That doesn't help me build positive associations in any respect. But now you're a bit of a prick as well, and I'm wary of your hand. That doesn't help. Like I say, it just doesn't help. Punishment shit when you're handling these things. Then you've got positive reinforcement, and it is the equivalent of an individual handing you a brown paper bag to breathe into and saying, if you just breathe calmly, then you can do that. What he's doing in that moment is giving you a very simple task that you've done before and something positive to concentrate on. It is the equivalent of, here is some high value food. If you eat it and focus on it, then your physiological response of hyperventilating or feeling anxious or feeling stressed comes down to the point when then you go back into the thinking brain, and then you're trainable again. And then we can have that conversation of, what did you do that for, mate? But dogs don't have that because they're not moral. Remember, guys, that it is not the same. You choosing to hyperventilate, oh, I'm going to hyperventilate because it's got me attention in the past. That is not the same as being affected by an external stimulus and your body physically reacting. One of them is choice. The other one is a reflexive side of the brain. And sure, we can choose to breathe deeply enough and we can cause ourselves to hyperventilate. But again, it's not an exact moment. It's not like a precise thing. It's not choice. We've just got that higher cognitive ability. Remember, dogs aren't moral. They don't have theory of mind. That means they're not trying to perceive. They can't perceive, and so they're not trying to influence your emotions the way that we could either. So that would rule that whole facet of that argument out. So when we are training the dog and we do see it having a reaction based on stress, fear, anxiety, you can try and rescue it. You can try and give it positive reinforcement, knowing that you are just trying to make their thinking brain come back on. You know, you offer them food, the likelihood is they're going to turn their head around and start to think about what you would like again. If you train it well enough and condition it well enough, when they see the stressor and you've conditioned it well enough gradually on below threshold and go, choose me, and the dog chooses to turn its head around, and then you can get it to choose to follow you, you have a dog making decisions. But that is not training the dog in the reflexive brain. That is the dog, us noticing that the dog is getting stressed, and then we bring it back down to the thinking brain so that they can make a choice, and we use positive reinforcement. One, to condition like a behavior that we would like, but two, to alter the emotional response. It makes them feel better in the moment. It does not make them want to feel stressed, fearful, or anxious in the future.